this afternoon has produced and directed over 80 feature films in over 200 television shows and TV movies, and is recognized as nothing short of an icon in the entertainment industry. During his 60-plus years in showbiz, he has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, and he also has an incredible new book out called Tough Guys Do Dance. In it, he shares jaw-dropping behind-the-scenes stories regarding his associations with some of the biggest names in showbiz. Names like Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, Paul Newman, my goodness, Barbra Streisand, and Michael Jackson, to name a few. This incredible book is filled with personal stories of his incredible life. I am honored to have him on the show this afternoon. Actor, director, producer, and legendary choreographer, and the only guy to crash Sal Mine's sports car, folks, Mr. David Winters. David, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon. Whew.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Mike, and nice to meet all of you people that listen to you.
It's a big thrill for me. David, I want to start off in the early part of your career. Early in your life, you had a passion for dancing, and you actually shined shoes at Coney Island as a kid to pay for your dance lessons. Is that dance lessons? Is that true?
That is true. I was 12 years old, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that and your passion.
I took that money and I paid for dance classes at a place called the McLeavy's Dance Studio. They put me on their TV show after 2 weeks of me studying there. And then they came back and said to me, David, we can't teach you anymore. You need to go to a professional school in New York City. And so that's what I did. I went to professional school in New York City. And my classmates were Elliot Gould, who is still this day one of my best friends.
Wow.
Years and years later, we were both 13 years old, and Christopher Walken was also in my dance class.
My goodness. Two great actors, legendary actors.
And dancers. I mean, Christopher is a great dancer, by the way. You know, Chris Walken is a wonderful dancer. So, so we all started together, and we're still in it. In fact, I loaned Chris my jacket from West Side Story. I bumped into him years later, and he asked me to give him my jacket for a minute, so I did. So, Chris, if you listen to this show, now 42 years later, man, please, I want my jacket back, okay?
I think I saw it up on eBay.
Probably. It's probably worth a few bucks these days.
My goodness, it's amazing. David, so you said you were an actor at 13, and by the time you were 17 years old in New York, you had 150 TV shows under your belt. That's amazing.
Yes. I worked all the time. I was in New York for the 8 years I was there. Before West Side Story, I was out of work maybe once for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I got a lot of jobs. I was very, very lucky, I must say. And I studied hard. I worked hard for it, you know.
Yeah, obviously we're going to talk a lot about. Let's talk about West Side Story, the 1961. I mean, people still talk about that film today. I believe it was on a couple weeks ago. I was watching it. You played the role of.
It's on now. Actually, it's going to be on in 1,000 theaters.
Oh, right.
The 24th and 27th of this month, they're playing it.
Fandango's doing it. Yes. That's great that they put all these old classic films out there at the big theaters.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful.
The young kids
get to see it now too.
A lot of other generations can get those great films, and let's hopefully someday, the westerns and the musicals will make a comeback.
Yeah.
So talk about you played Arab in the Jet, and the youngest member of
the movie. I played Arab, but in the Broadway show, I was Baby John. I was 17. I was the youngest member of the show, and I was the first one signed for it.
Wow.
Jerry saw me in a show called Shinbone Alley that I was doing on Broadway, and his secretary called me the next day, and I hung up the phone on her. I thought it was a joke, Jerome Robbins calling me, Wow. So she called back in, and she said, no, I'm Mr. Robbins' assistant, and he saw you in Shinbone Alley last night. He's doing a new show called West Side Story, and he thought that you might be right for one of the parts in it.
Wow.
So she said, do you want to come and audition? So I did, and I gave it. I thought it was not a very good audition, but he called me back, and eventually I got that. And Cheetah Rivera, by the way, was the understudy in Shinbone Alley to Eartha Kitt. And she also, I actually told her when she got the part because she didn't know she had auditioned. And I didn't even know she auditioned, but I heard Jerry and Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim mentioning her name. They were going to cast her for the part of Anita. So I went back to the theater that night, and we danced and sang together because it was like a dream, of course, to work with these kind of people.
Right. I mean,
and she became a superstar, as we all know. You know, she's got more awards. She actually does a thing. I have 22 celebrities in the beginning of my book, writing some very nice things about me.
wow.
And she was one of them. And she is they just gave her the Tony Award for the most outstanding achievement in her lifetime, a lifetime award. She has more Tony nominations than any other living person ever in the history of the Tonys.
I mean, like I said earlier, the West Side Story, it's the popularity today. It's not faded, but it shines even brighter. What are your thoughts on Steven Spielberg signing on to direct a remake with Tony Kushner as the writer?
I have a question about that. I saw some of the screenplay. I didn't like it. Honestly.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, the writing that I saw was not excellent, I didn't think. Now, I'm hoping that I'm wrong, and Stephen is obviously one of the great filmmakers of all time. But for take on West Side Story, it's a classic.
Yes.
It's like redoing Gone with the Wind. Why would you do that?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
I don't get it.
Good point.
He's not from musicals, He's not from musicals. And I remember when a friend of mine, Francis Ford Coppola, he actually was going to. Bob Evans was originally going to do the Cotton Club.
Yes,
and Bob hired me to do all the dancing.
Gregory Hines.
Gregory, I worked with Gregory. I rehearsed with Gregory for that movie.
Great dancer.
And then when fantastic dancer. When Francis came on, he said his assistant sent me a letter saying they don't need me anymore. And then I went to see the picture, and I thought, oh, my God, do they need me? That was terrible, that picture. And he also did Phineas Rainbow. So, when you do a musical, it's not the same as like doing any other movie. It's a very special thing. Stanley Donen knew how to do it. Right. Gene Kelly knew how to do it. Vincent Minnelli knew how to do it. Not too many directors know how to do musicals.
That's a very good point.
So,
Folks, joining me on this show is legendary choreographer, producer, director David Winters. Please go to Amazon.com or Barnes & Nobles to pick up his incredible book, Tough Guys Do Dance. In it, there's, like he said, there was 22 celebrities tell stories. In it, it's amazing stories from his 60 years plus years in showbiz. David, you have so many interesting...
They tell me, by the way, let me just interrupt you for a second. They tell me that I'm now a bestseller book because we were number one the first day my book came out on Amazon.
Oh, excellent.
I'm so thrilled. We were number one in the dance biographies and number 3 in the film biographies, film director biographies.
That's what my show is a lot about. I talk a lot about, I think we had a pre-interview, I talk a lot about the golden age of Hollywood. And when Hollywood was Hollywood, when the stars were stars and the starlets lit up the night, you know what I mean, at the red carpets at the Academy Awards. Now, I want to ask you a funny story. Earlier, I don't know what year it was, but you had a great story about Barbra Streisand. She used to sing songs to you, and you just sat there, and she actually paid you for it.
Yes, she paid me $12,500 a week.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think it was in the 70s.
Wow.
And I used to go to her house every day, sit in a big white chair. Everything in her house was white. She would stand there and say, what do you think of this? Because, she wrote some of the songs there, too, with Paul. Paul Williams. So she would sing all the songs to me and ask me what I thought and, how did I see it, and blah, blah, blah. Because I was a creative consultant on that movie, as well as the choreographer. So she and I had a lot of meetings, and she gave me the script, and I went through it, and I told her certain things that wouldn't work because they were kind of old-fashioned, and she that's what she wanted me for. She wanted me because she knew I was kind of, happening and what was going on with what the new things were, the new techniques and everything. So we cut out some of the stuff that was in there that was kind of old-fashioned, and we put in some more, modern stuff and more contemporary stuff of the day, of course,
Right. You choreographed A Star Is Born.
Yes, this is with Barbra. Yes, I know Barbra Streisand since she's 18 years old, and she was an actress. She couldn't get a job, so she became a singer. She's my favorite singer in the world. And then she married one of my best friends. She married Elliot Gould.
Wow, that's right. Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah, they were married, and they have a child. They have a child who's a singer, a beautiful voice. He just did an album with Barbra, actually.
I actually had her press agent on a while ago, Dick Gutman. I don't know because he still represents her.
Yeah, sure. And Marty Ehrlichman still represents her, too, her manager.
Yes, great people. Yeah. Great people.
Oh, she's wonderful. She's the best.
I want to talk a little bit about working with Frank Sinatra. Talk a little bit about working with Frank Sinatra on the Nancy Sinatra special.
I did the Nancy Sinatra special. It was my first Emmy nomination. I've got like 6 of them. and that was my first one. They didn't have a category, though, so they put me in a category that was Outstanding Achievement in Television. And in that category was Art Carney and Don Adams.
Wow.
How are you going to win in a category where you get the actors, stars of them shows on TV every week, and I just did one special? So the next year, they wanted to nominate me again for the Anne Margaret special that I did with Lucille Bull, who became my second mother.
Wow.
And so they made up a category called Outstanding Achievement in Choreography on Television for me, basically. And now it's still going. That award is still there every year. It's one of the proudest things in my life that I actually gave back to the dance world.
Wow.
And so this award still exists every year, people getting it. And some of my kids that I started in the business, Anita Mann, she won the award. Walter Painter won 3 of them and has 4 more nominations. So it's really wonderful to see these kids that I actually started in the business winning that award.
Wow, amazing.
Just love it. Anyhow, Frank Sinatra, after the show, he sent me a beautiful letter.
Yeah.
He's such a classy man. He said, thanking me for this and thanking me for that, for doing the special, because I was a guest star on the special, as was Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. So after he sent me this letter, and it was so beautiful. At the end of it, to show you what kind of class Frank had, he signed it Nancy's dad.
Oh,
he didn't
wow.
sign it Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
He said, "That's the most beautiful letter, just so beautiful." And it just at the bottom says Nancy's dad, and I thought,
amazing.
wow, how humble. And
Right, how humble. I want to talk.
That's where Nancy gets it from, by the way. Nancy is the same way.
I want to talk about another humble gentleman you work with. You choreographed 4 of his films. The great Elvis Presley. Talk about a little bit about Elvis.
Oh my God, Elvis Presley is the most down-to-earth, simplest guy I've. When I met him, he actually came into the audition to the rehearsal hall and introduced himself to me like I didn't know who Elvis Presley was. He said, "I am Elvis Presley." I said, "Yeah."
I never heard of you.
No, right?
I never heard of you.
No, I wouldn't have known. Yeah, so we became buddies because we got along really great. And Margaret got me that job, and she got me. Actually, she's responsible for my whole career on the other side of the camera as a director.
Tell her to come on my show. I'm trying to get her.
And Annie, I was just with her. I was just at her house 3 weeks ago.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. We had a little reunion because I hadn't seen her in a while, and her husband passed away, and then her son passed away like 2 weeks before I saw her. So she's okay though. She's such a sweetheart. She never changed a day. Anyhow, so she got me that job because she came to study with me after Bye Bye Birdie. She was studying dancing, private lessons with me, and she said, David, I just can connect with you with your dance moves and everything. And she does. She's incredible. She takes them and she does great stuff with them. So she said, I want to try and get you on this movie. They already have a choreographer, but I'm going to see. So she brought in the director, George Sidney. She brought in the producer, Jack Cummings. They came to my dance class. They loved it. And they fired the other guy. I'm so sorry, but I got the job. And he got me the job. And I became friendly with Elvis because he and I really clicked. And so he said to me, I want you to make all my movies with me. So I made 4 movies with Elvis. That's more than anybody else has ever done. And we became great buddies. And I love Elvis. I loved him, and I miss him so much. He was such a sweet, down-to-earth. He was the most down-to-earth. I tell you something. One thing about my book is that I try to do is let people know the other sides for all these people because they're beautiful human beings. Right. Michael Jackson is the most giving human being. I saw him in 1 week.
I'm sorry. Talk about the first time you met Michael Jackson because it was with Diana Ross introduced you.
I did Diana Ross's shows. I get very well with all the performers because I'm a performer myself. So it's not like I'm, some outside guy with them. They understand me. I understand them. So I did all of Diana's shows, her stage shows, her television shows for 3 years. I did all her shows, every one of them. And even did a show for President Reagan at the Metropolitan Opera House that he requested. He'd heard about something I did with Diana, with Street Kids and Dancers. Anyhow, ballet. We did it with the Joffrey Ballet and Street Dancers together. It was very exciting. To a medley of Diana's show of songs from her special. So what was I going to say with Diana? Oh, yes, she says to me, we got Michael Jackson coming on the next show, David, and Muhammad Ali. Oh, my God, I'm in love with both of them, So she takes me down to introduce me to Michael, and Michael says, I know David. And I said, Michael, I don't think so. I think if I'd met Michael Jackson in my life, I would remember. So he picked up his hand and he snapped his fingers in front of my face. like from West Side Story.
West Side
He
Story,
said, David,
correct.
I watch you every week. It's my favorite movie. I know every step from that movie. He said, well, you inspired me when I saw that movie. And so we clicked. We became buddies until he died. And he asked me to come on tour with him just as a friend in Holland for a week and in Romania for a week. Okay? And while I was there in Holland, every day we would get off the airplane, and the first thing we did is we go to a hospital. And he wasn't announced. Nobody knew he was coming. And he went to see the kids in the incurable diseases sections because he was into children, helping children. He went there, he gave them the pictures and the autographs and stuff. And when it was finished, he had a secretary go with us and take one of the nurses there to the side. And he would say to her, what do you need in this hospital for these children to keep them alive longer, to make their lives a little better, to make them a little more comfortable? What do you need? Maybe to cure them. And they would give them the names of the machines. We then go to a second hospital. Now, he had a show. He hadn't checked in the hotel yet. He had a show to do that night. There was 110,000 people in the auditorium waiting for him every night to do a show. He went to the second hospital, and we're talking about 2:30 in the afternoon. At 4 o'clock, he's got to leave to go to the show, to do his own show. So he hasn't even checked in yet. We get to the hotel after the second hospital. He puts his secretary on the phone and says to whoever was on the other end, buy all of that equipment and buy it anonymously. So they never even knew that it came from Michael.
Wow.
$10 million.
$10 million. 1 weekend.
$10 million in 1 week.
1 week.
1 week that he gave to children in hospitals. That's why he's such a beautiful person.
Yeah, his generosity and Frank Sinatra's generosity was legendary.
Well, the same thing. Frank also gave anonymously. It's one thing to say and have your name everywhere.
Right.
But these people didn't even want that. They just wanted the people who were getting it to receive it and enjoy it. And they didn't care that it came from them. They didn't want the publicity that it came from them, or the glamour. You know, and that's really giving. That's really, really giving.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so many stories. I mean, I remember hearing a story down the Fontainebleau in Miami Beach. He used to just line up with all the bellboys and give them $100 each all the way down the line. And, you know, the whole city was the whole city was going crazy because Frank Sinatra was coming in, you know, and everybody was going in. You know, that's how he was. And the guys.
Well, Michael, he'd be up all night long with the fans would be outside of his window just looking for a glimpse of him. He would send them food and drinks and everything all night long.
Amazing generosity.
He didn't know any of them. None of them. And some of them would just follow him around. I met kids there in his hotel. They come from Germany. They come from South Africa. They come from all over the world just following him. That's all they do is they follow Michael Jackson, or they did.
Some of your directing career, you did the TV show The Monkees, and you actually went on.
Yes.
You actually created, staged, and produced the Monkees World Tour. Do you remember who the opening act was?
The opening act, no, but there was an opening act. Jimi Hendrix was an opening act for one of the shows, and they fired Jimmy because his music obviously wasn't the same kind of music as the Monkees. You know, it was crazy. When we opened the show in Hawaii. I also directed the television show, but we opened the show in Hawaii, and they stormed like the Beatles. They stormed. The girls broke through the barriers, and they were chasing us. They were even chasing me. I had to get out the limousine and run for my life because these girls were crazy. Because, you know, the Monkees actually displaced the Beatles on the number one chart in America. They were the first group that did that.
Wow.
So they were huge and famous in those days. Well, they still are. They're still touring 38 years later.
Yes.
In fact, Mickey wrote a thing in the beginning of my book also to me, which is very sweet. Mickey Dolenz. He's still my friend.
Dave, well, I want to get a couple more quick stories out because we're running out of time.
Sure.
So I mentioned in the intro that you smashed Sal Mine's Thunderbird. How does that happen?
Well, you know, when I first got to Hollywood, Sal was my best friend. In New York City, we went to Lodge Professional School. He was in King and I got called out to do West Side Story, and he was already here doing Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean.
Wow, another good friend of yours.
Movie.
Another great friend of yours. Yes.
And so I didn't have a car, so he said to me, "Stay at my house." I lived up on the hills. He said, "I got a car. You can use my car." He had a little Thunderbird, beautiful little Thunderbird. So I'm going down the hill, and all of a sudden the brakes give out, and I wind up crashing through a wall. And I'm hanging on the wall by my back tires like I could die, because if this thing fell further, it would crush me.
Oh, my goodness.
And this woman who owned the property comes out and starts screaming at me. I ruined her garden. I said, "Lady, please, I'm going to die." They said, "What are you doing? Please call the police. Do something." So they called the fire department, and they got the fire guys to come and rescue me. But she was worried about her flowers.
She worried about her poinsettias. Was it a?
I told Sal about it. And Sal was so sweet. He said, "Look, David, I don't care about the car. I was terrible because it's a beautiful car. You know, the '57 Thunderbird. Was it a
convertible?
Yes, it was a convertible, exactly. And I was hanging out, believe me. I was just hanging by the back wheels, the two back wheels. The front wheels were just hanging in space.
Classic, folks.
And so Sal said to me, I'm just so happy you're okay, because he was a real good buddy of mine.
Folks, please run out to Amazon.com and pick up David Winter's autobiography. It's called Tough Guys Do Dance. You can also visit davidwintersbook.com. It's incredible stories about the golden age of Hollywood. And this has been a fantastic. I've had so much fun, and I definitely want to have you back on. What else?
I'm available. Thank you.
Talk about James Dean real quick.
James Dean was, he was actually rehearsing a play called See the Jaguar, and I didn't know him. He was just a young actor that was on Broadway, And so I went to the rehearsals because I knew the director, and James was introduced to me. And he came over and started talking to me, and he said I reminded him of The Little Prince, which was his favorite book, Le Petit Prince, a very famous book. It's now become my favorite book in the world. It's the most socially significant book, and it's about a little prince, and it's a wonderful, wonderful story. So he said to me, you remind me of that character. You should play him in the movies. And when he had to go to rehearsal, he left. We talked about a lot of different things, and I was only 13 at the time. And James, I was so impressed with him because he treated me like an adult. He seemed to give me a lot of respect, which for an older actor, I thought that's interesting. I'm 13, and he's really seriously talking to me about all kinds of different things, philosophy, cars, all kinds of things, life. And I could see he was a very sensitive human being, very sensitive. And when he left to go back to rehearsal, he said, I'll see you, my little prince. I'll see you in the movies.
Wow. Amazing.
So sweet.
Amazing stories.
Yeah.
You can find these stories at Amazon.com and his David Winter's incredible book, Tough Guys Do Dance. And David, what can I say? Thank you so much for coming on my show. No doubt you have left an invaluable impression on Showbiz that will live on forever in my book. So
thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And